We start today with 2024 Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy rising but not really surging in the polls after an energetic, borderline manic performance during last week's debate. He has a real problem on his hands. The problem is he has said so many things, including completely opposing things about the same issues, some of which sound crazy. And now he's being hit with his own quotes during interviews, and he has to figure out, how am I going to deal with this? He was confronted by MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell, and it really didn't go well. Now, one of the things we're learning about Vivek Ramaswamy, and give me a moment to lay this out, is that he's taking an all of the above approach when it comes to being confronted with his own crazy past statements. There's lots of techniques that can be employed. For example, you're confronted with a quote of your own that you don't want to defend. You can pivot. You can answer a different question. You can address something else other than what you're being asked. That's one possibility. You can attack the person asking you the question. You can say, well, you're just part of the woke media mob or whatever, right? You can attack the interviewer. You can do a gish gallop, which is basically like a word salad. This is what Cornel West did when Laura Ingraham recently said, do you really owe $500,000 in unpaid child support and back taxes? And he didn't answer. He just talked about other things. That's a gish gallop. You can use a selective quoting where you only address a narrow part of the quote that's relatively benign. You can say, everybody agrees with me about this. And so that's not really an answer. You're just basically saying, well, it's not just me who's saying this, it's other people as well. You can use ambiguity, which is sort of answering the question, but being ambiguous where you're not really addressing the core of it. There's all these different strategies that one can employ when presented with their own quotes and simple yes, no questions. Do you stand by this or not? Do you have evidence or not? Vivek does all of it. He will use all of these techniques. Here is Andrea Mitchell confronting him about his claim that converting to clean energy has killed 2 million people. I was able to find no evidence of that because I don't think it exists. Here she is confronting him with the question. See if you can spot which tactic he uses.
Can you offer a shred of evidence that more than 2 million people died from converting to clean energy?
I can offer clear evidence that the number of climate disaster-related deaths is down by 98% over the last century. The number of people who died of hurricanes.
And you see Andrea Mitchell shaking her head there. Question. You said 2 million people died from converting to clean energy. Do you have any evidence for that? What I have evidence for, says Vivek, is that way fewer people are dying today than in the past related to climate disasters. Now, Philip Bump explained this in a recent piece that he wrote. The reason why fewer people are dying from climate-related disasters is because weather forecasting has become so much better. There was a time when there would really be no idea that a massive hurricane was coming. And when people mostly evacuate, sometimes a hurricane will kill 0 or 5 people. Nobody knows the thing's coming, and you just stick around. You could have hundreds or thousands of people killed, and then that dramatically skews the number. The other issue is that there's the conflation of climate and weather, whether people are dying from extreme weather versus people are dying from climate versus people are dying from a conversion to clean energy. Like, for example, we've switched from, coal to to solar. Does that mean that people are dying because of that? It's all of it. He's employing a whole bunch of these different techniques. He's pivoting, he's putting in a straw man, and then he's going to continue to do more of it here.
Tornadoes, heat waves, and other weather-related events in 1920.
Right. Why would more people die from heat waves in 1920 than today? Well, we have something called widespread air conditioning today.
For every 100 that died then, 2 die today. And the reason why is more plentiful, abundant access to fossil fuels and technology powered by fossil fuels. I can also tell you today, it is a hard fact, none of these things are disputed. 8 times as many people die of cold temperatures than die of warm ones. The right answer to all temperature-related deaths is more plentiful, abundant access to fossil fuels.
Now, we've talked about this before, of course, when it comes to protecting people from the cold or the heat. You can do it with wind and solar and geothermal. And I've even said I'm open to looking at new nuclear because it's so much safer, but that's a topic for a different day. But that is separate from needing fossil fuels. And the claim that more people are dying from cold versus hot, we've talked about that before. That's a complex text, and it really depends on where you are looking. Where are you restricting your analysis? So again, it's slippery slope talking about we're not going to have any fossil fuels. It's red herring. It's straw man. It's all of these different things. He's doing all of it. One other example of Vivek being forced to sort of like try to address things he said. He is asked by Andrea Mitchell about his whole thing that Mike Pence should have essentially refused to certify the 2020 election unless he could employ some kind of trick to get voter ID implemented nationally and changing federal election law, which would never happen. It's a total cop-out what Vivek has said. He said, well, I would have certified it after achieving these things, which of course would be impossible to achieve in a day. Anyway, he's asked about that and it's crazy.
So that means you would not have certified the results that night before midnight on January 6th, while that was your constitutional obligation. What if Kamala Harris did that? What if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win?
To be clear,
would she have that same authority?
To be clear, I stand by what I said.
But how could you get legislation through, sir, that kind of legislation through in time to
in a day
certify the election? You would be violating your oath as vice president.
There would have been. So I respectfully disagree, Andrea. I stand by what I said in that interview, not what you just said that I said. I said that that's exactly what I would.
So this is denying the quote. This is one technique, just denial of the quote.
Have delivered, and then use that as an opportunity for heroism to reunite this country. Because there are two preconditions for the health of our constitutional republic. One is the peaceful transition of power. The other is public confidence in our elections. And when those come into conflict, that was a rare opportunity for heroism that I think Mike Pence missed.
Yeah, listen, the idea that Pence was going to change federal election law is just radically ridiculous, naive, or dishonest. And in a normal world, the more lies that a candidate would tell, the more extreme positions that a candidate would put forward, they should lose support. But we're dealing with the modern Republican Party here, so we don't know that that's going to happen. And Vivek Ramaswamy may end up being rewarded for his extremism and his dishonesty. But here it is, very plain to see the techniques and tactics that we know about to avoid dealing with your own past statements. Vivek employing the gamut of them, and Andrea Mitchell at some points left literally just shaking her head. One of our sponsors today is Cube. Cube is a budgeting and banking app combined. No more guessing if you have money for the things you need and want. No more having to categorize each transaction to keep up with your budget. It works like this. You split your money into budget categories called cubes: groceries, car, etc. Let's say you've budgeted $1,000 a month for groceries. You're at the grocery store. Your bill comes to $250. You select your grocery cube in the app. That'll make your grocery budget available on your debit card. Make the purchase. And as soon as you run the card, what's left for your grocery budget goes back into the grocery cube. And that is it. The Cube card has zero available balance unless the cube is open, which prevents theft. Every purchase is logged by category automatically in the app. You can share it between family members. Cube offers cards for kids, so you can stay a step ahead of your budget instead of always spending from one big pot, not knowing where you are. The average Cube user saves $440 a month by eliminating mindless spending. You can try the Cube Premium or Family Plan free for 2 months at davidpakman.com/money. The link is down below.